Oh, there they go. All right. Please join me in welcoming Rick, a longtime BPTMN member and current chapter president. Year four? Year four. Year four. With degrees in forest management and business from Stephen F. Austin, Rick brings deep expertise and a renewed passion for nature. He serves on Frisco's Natural Resources Advisory Board, volunteers as trail guide across the parks, and teaches forest ecology for master naturalists training programs across North Texas.
Thank y'all. Is volume okay? How's that sound? Y'all ready to go on a walk through the woods? All right, let's do it. All right, riparian rock stars. What I did was I took a set of trees that we usually go through with our trees class or forest ecologies class, and I curated it to pick the trees that they're all important, but these are the most important of the group of trees. So what kind of a standard did I use? Well, these trees are going to be wide ranging. They have significant populations, so there's a lot of them. They have fruits and seeds that are a major food source for a lot of different species. That's an important criteria. And they're a host for adult butterflies and moths in the raising of their larval young. That's very important. For y'all that don't know what I mean by host, when a plant is a host for an insect, that means that plant is the nursery for that insect. They will lay their eggs on that plant, and that plant will provide sustenance to the caterpillar, for your caterpillar species. So that plant is acting as a host for that species. And they're a source of caterpillars. These I kind of picked on. We'll be talking about other types of wildlife, but I picked on Lepidoptera as being very important to the different types of Lepidoptera, which are your moths and your butterflies, for a very important reason. They're so important to our food web. As an example, with birds, there's a lot of seed-eating birds that can't feed their young seeds. They can't eat them, they can't digest them, they don't have the protein in them. So they could feed them insects, but what do insects have on them? An exoskeleton, right? They're hard, so they're too much for the baby birds to be able to eat, for the clutch to be able to eat. So they resort to caterpillars because they're full of protein, full of minerals, and they're soft. And that's why we call caterpillars nature's hot dog. Okay? You put a little mustard on that, some relish. That's good eating there. All right. That caterpillar is known, by the way, as a hickory horned devil, and that is a caterpillar of a regal moth caterpillar, which does reside in our area. So you can find these guys. They get awful big. They don't come with a bun, though. Okay. Sorry, my clock's in the way. The area that we're going to talk about is a little bit beyond the Blackland Prairie area. I'm going to move a little bit beyond that because I want to talk about a few of the trees that reside in the cross timbers area because they are in the Metroplex and we see them on a regular basis. So I've spread our wings a little bit on that. So first we're going to talk about the oaks. And before I get into the oaks, I want you to note in the upper left side here, see a little caterpillar with a number? That is a number provided by the National Wildlife Federation for the number of caterpillar insects that the genus of oaks, which is genus Quercus, which they support in the Midwestern part of the state, the Great Plains states, which we're part of, okay? For oaks, I believe the number is nationally like 900 to 1,000 or 1,100, but that is for your middle part of the country. 253 species of caterpillar-producing insects utilize oaks as their host. And the first up I want to talk about is the bur oak, which there are some huge ones that reside here at the herd. This is the tree with the huge acorns, the huge burly leaves on them, 12 inches long, 6 inches wide, massive, 80 feet tall, beautiful ones down on Hoot Owl Trail here. We got some gorgeous ones here. This is, to me, the finest oak in North America. It's disease resistant, it's drought resistant, and it's fire resistant. They like bottomlands. They do well in bottomlands. They do well in lower slopes. Its value to wildlife is those large acorns are prized by deer and small mammals. Note that I said up here in the upper left that it's a member of the white oak, the upper right, it's a member of the white oak group. So keep that in mind. Deer eat the leaves, twigs, and barks, and that's going to be a little bit of a broken record for oaks. And it's a larval host for the Edwards hair streak and the Horace's dusky wing butterfly, which also will be a broken record because Horace's dusky wing butterflies love all oaks. A cousin of the bur oak in our area is the chinkapin oak, which also likes lower slopes, not quite bottomland driven as much as the bur oak is, but they do like deep soils and rich areas. They get really large. They have kind of an odd leaf for an oak. They look a little bit like a tree called the Allegheny chinkapin, which grows in the south. This tree has the sweetest acorns of any of the North American oaks. They're human edible when they're mature. They're kind of bland. I've tried them, but you can roast them. I understand when you roast them, they're actually pretty darn good. So it's a treasured acorn on this tree. The deer eat the leaves and twigs. Acorns are sweet and prized by deer, birds, and small mammals, and it is the larval host for the very common gray hair-streaked butterfly that we see quite a bit of in our area. And our next oak is a member of the red oak group. These are different from your white oaks. One difference that I didn't mention is your white oak group acorns, the acorns mature in one single season. They'll start in the spring, they'll drop in the fall. Your red oak group oaks take 2 seasons to mature. They will get fertilized, the fruit will get fertilized, they will drop the following fall, okay? So they're a little bit different. And I'm going to talk about these 2 species together. And I'll mention the reason in a minute. This is the shoe-marred oak and the Texas red oak. Shoe-marred oak grows really tall. It can be 100 feet tall with a beautiful singular trunk. Resides in East Texas, ranges into the DFW area. The Texas red oak is a central Texas, runs up through the middle of Texas, oak that's similar, but doesn't get near as tall, as branchier and a little bit shorter. From a purebred standpoint, you can see the shoe-marred acorn has a little beret cap on it, and the Texas red oak has the more of a woolly mitten cap on it. However, I never bother trying to ID these by species in the woods because they crossbreed. We have a woods full of mutts because their ranges overlap in our area and they crossbreed, so they've got genetics from both. You'll drive yourself insane trying to figure out in the woods what you've got because you really got both. So those are your 2-year red oaks that are important. Acorns eaten by the deer and small animals. Deer eat the leaves, twigs, and bark, and larval host for the butterfly. You got that down now. All right, now this is not a Blackland Prairie oak, and this is not a riparian oak. This grows in uplands, and it likes gravelly, sandy soil. This is a blackjack oak, and this is one of the major oaks that you find through the middle of the Metroplex in the Cross Timbers wooded area. It doesn't get as big as the other oaks we talked about, 60 feet tall max. Very dark, blocky bark on it, a very thick leaf that's waxy, has a waxy covering on it. It looks like a dinosaur footprint, almost, a little bit. And it grows in the Cross Timbers area. It also grows in East Texas. It's pretty prevalent in the East Texas area, but it takes a complete break in our clay and then starts back up to the west. Acorns are eaten by birds, rodents, deer, and small mammals. Deer eat the leaves and twigs. And it is the larval host for the white M hairstreak and the Horace's dusky-winged butterfly, exactly. Now, this is its partner in the Cross Timbers area. This is post oak. And post oak resides in East Texas, Central Texas, in Cross Timbers. This is actually by far the widest ranging oak from a natural standpoint that we have in Texas. Beautiful tree. I love these trees with its Maltese cross leaves, its gray bark, 50 feet tall, maybe max, but they'll get 50 feet wide with these big, broad, hanging limbs on them. It's a beautiful, beautiful oak. It's a member of the white oak group. The one thing I always like to call out with the post oaks, especially since we live in an urban area, is that they do not handle soil disturbance well at all. So with all of our construction, if anybody does any kind of grading work anywhere near the canopy of that tree, it may die. It's extremely sensitive to any kind of soil disturbance. So keep that in mind if you're a developer and you're out in the Cross Timbers area trying to put something in. Beautiful oak though. Acorn prized by deer and small mammals. Deer eat the leaves, twigs, and bark. Larval host for the northern hairstreak. And these... Y'all just do the talk for me and I'm going to take a break, just run the slides. Just kidding. Okay, I think this is our last oak, and this is the escarpment or Texas live oak. There are 2 species of live oak in North America. There's the Texas live oak, and then there's the southern live oak, the one you may think of as the antebellum live oak in the deep south that runs along the Texas coast through the south and up the eastern seaboard. The oak that we have that runs up in our area mainly resides in the Cross Timbers area, but I do find this tree in sandier soils along creek banks. because it's finding enough sand to germinate. The acorns are. So we do have them in the Blackland Prairie area, but they're not very common. Live oak's called a live oak because they don't drop their leaves. Well, they do, but they don't do it seasonally. Yeah, they do it a little at a time. So they seem like they're always alive. So that's how they got its name. So acorns prized, by deer and small mammals. Deer eat the leaves, twigs, and bark. Larval host for several hair streaks. And the dusky winged butterfly. We're going to do the next one in harmony. Okay. Oh, we got a little story to tell. This is Mr. Squirrel. Yes, Mr. Squirrel. I love Mr. Squirrel. He is quite the connoisseur when it comes to acorns, in case you didn't know that. Now, you've got a bur oak acorn up there. That's this one. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Oh, crap, I just screwed up my punchline. You've got a bur oak acorn up here. Okay, it's a white oak acorn. And then you got a red oak acorn right here, which is a shoe-marked acorn. The bur oak acorns, being a white oak acorn, are much sweeter. They don't have tannins in them. So squirrels tend to eat them right away. They'll eat them. They don't hold up very well either. So they don't bury a lot of them. They'll eat them as they mature on the tree. Your red oak acorns, they've been on that tree for 2 years and they've collected tannin, which is a chemical which is bitter. It's kind of a protective chemical that trees will put or plants will put into themselves. And so they're really not that great for them to eat. So they'll bury them and they'll let them sit around through the winter till probably late winter, let them soften up their flavor, get rid of some of the bitterness, and sweeten up a little bit before they eat them. So since I screwed up my punchline, what are they thinking? It's the exact same principle as wine. If you know your wine, where you have your white wines, which are your drink now wines, because they don't have tannins in them. They don't age well, so you got to drink them now. Red wines have tannins in them. They need to be aged. They age well, and they have to kind of age so that they soften up. It's the exact same principle. However, I am not implying that squirrels drink wine. I have seen through personal observation that they prefer other beverages. Okay? I actually took that picture somewhere. I couldn't believe what that squirrel was doing. So I can't remember where I was. All right, so that's enough of my squirrel story. Before we get off oaks, though, I want to talk a little bit about oak wilt, a little bit, which is a serious issue, especially with those red oak group oaks that we were talking about. Oak wilt is in all those red counties there, at least as of 2019. It's probably spread somewhat. It's in much worse in central Texas. San Antonio, Austin has been devastated. Their oaks have been devastated thereby. We have it here more of as a nuisance, but it's here, and it does kill oak trees. It's a fungus. It's a fungal disease that chokes the tree to death. It gets into the cambium layer, that layer of the tree just inside the bark where the tree feeds itself. Brings sugars down from the leaves from photosynthesis, water and nutrients up from the roots to help feed the leaves. That's how a tree feeds itself. It gets choked off and dies. When that tree dies, the bark will fall off and expose a fungal mat. And that's what that is right there. And that's a key for our next slide about how this goes about spreading. And the devastation from this depends upon the type of oak. If you're a white oak, you might lose a couple of limbs. You'll probably fight it off after 3 or 4 years, but you'll probably live. If you're a live oak, you're kind of a tweener. You get about a 50-50 proposition of living. If you're a red oak group oak, you're dead in 3 to 6 months. It is almost 100% mortality once it gets into them, because their cellular structure and their cambium layer is different. So they're much more vulnerable to it. So how does it spread? It can spread through roots, but its primary way of spreading is through a little group of cute little beetles called Naturalists. And these are sap-feeding beetles. They will feed off of sap. They will sense, a trimmed tree or a wounded tree, and they will just feed off the sap. And that's harmless in itself. But this fungus tricks these little beetles. This fungus smells real sweet. The beetle is attracted to it. It goes to it, walks all over. It doesn't feed off the mat, but while it's walking all over this mat trying to find the sap, it's getting all that fungus on its little beetle feces, okay? So then it gets off of there because it hadn't eaten, and it goes and it finds a tree that has a wound on it. And it sits on that sap, which is on the interior of the tree, right? It's a wound, and puts the fungus inside the tree. That's how it spreads. That's the primary way that it spreads. So what do you do about it if we have this kind of a problem with oaks? Texas Forest Service recommends don't do any pruning on oaks from February to June. That is when the beetles are mature. That's when they're active. So just don't do it. I see it done all the time by trimming companies, and that you're just asking for trouble with the oak wilt disease. And even other times, they do recommend, there's two schools of thought about whether or not you seal up a wound on it when you trim up a tree. They recommend with oaks, just seal it, try to keep the sap from flowing as best as you can. So that's enough of that. Now we're going to get into the elms for a few minutes. The elms is another great genus of trees. And you can see from our little National Wildlife Federation caterpillar up there, that genus supports about 109 species of caterpillar making insects in the Midwestern part of the country. The first up is the greatest of the elms, the American elm. Beautiful tree, grows with these tall branches, high branches, up to 100 feet tall, large leaves. They're glossy on the top, a little paler underneath. Beautiful form. This tree has beautiful form, which got it in trouble in the 1920s. And that trouble was, we'll talk about that in just a minute. But its value to wildlife is pretty wide. And this tree will live, I meant to tell you guys kind of where you find these trees. This tree you will find creekside a lot, riverside a lot. They seem to like to be on bluffs around water. Not really in the bottomland per se, but on bluffs around the water. So they like to have some of their roots close to the water. The deer eat the leaves and twigs. Songbirds and small animals eat the seeds, which come out in the spring. That's your seeds down here. These come out early in the spring before the leaves come out. And it is the larval host for the mourning cloak, the question mark butterfly, the painted lady, the comma, and the Columbia silk moth. So and among many others, this tree is a host for a lot. It supports a lot of our food web. That is a picture taken in the 1890s of a boulevard in the eastern part of the United States. Those are elms. See how they make that beautiful cathedral shading? And especially when you plant those elms 5 feet apart and they get 80 feet tall. And then you get that fungus, and you get Dutch elm disease in them, which I haven't spoken about, which is a fungus similar to oak wilt in a sense, because it feeds either through bark beetles that will spread it tree to tree or through root systems. When you got that, they're going through the root systems. They're sharing space. And so that was what would happen along the eastern seaboard. And Dutch elm disease was devastating to American elms all along the eastern seaboard. Dutch elm disease is still with us, but it's more of a nuisance. It's a nuisance in our area, but trees that are in the woods that are more spread apart, more sporadic in their spacing, it just isn't near the issue. It's just one of the things that go on, but they don't wipe out the entire stand of trees. Doesn't happen. This is a lesson in not planting a monoculture when you're doing urban forestry. This is an urban forestry lesson here. Don't do that. Okay? Okay, so this is a cousin of it. This is a slippery elm. It has similar sized leaves, but they kind of fold up, as you can see from the photo, and they're always rough to touch. They also seed in the spring, but the seeds look a little bit different. They don't have the little hairs around the edges, but it's an early spring cedar. Not as common in Texas as American elm, but very common in the eastern half of the United States. It's a really great tree. It's got some great traits to it. And along with the American elm, the deer eat the leaves and twigs. The songbirds eat the seeds. Small mammals eat the fruit samara and is a larval host for the mourning cloak butterfly and the Columbia silk moth. And that's the slippery elm. You should know this elm. This is a highly cultivated elm in our area. Some people call it the poor man's live oak because it's a very popular landscape tree. Mid-sized is the cedar elm. It's about 50, 60 feet tall. Doesn't need a lot of space. Drought resistant. It will grow in wetlands. It will grow on uplands. It will grow pretty much everywhere. Pretty disease resistant except for mistletoe, which you can see over here. It tends to get mistletoe. So when you see cedar elms in the winter, they've dropped their leaves, but you see balls of green in them. Mistletoe is what you're looking at. They won't kill the tree, but they can slow down their growth somewhat because they are feeding off of that tree. With the cedar elm, the deer eat the leaves and twigs. Songbirds and small animals eat the seeds. And a particular point with the cedar elm that's different from the other two elms we talked about, the American elm and the slippery elm flower and seed in the spring. That's when their food is available for birds and animals. Cedar elm flowers and seeds in the fall. They're flowering and seeding pretty soon. And their seeds persist. That makes this a food source for the fall and the winter time for overwintering or squirrels or overwintering wildlife and any birds that are migrating through during the winter period. So that makes this really valuable because its timing is in a different season from the other elms and provides elm type nutrition. It is a larval host for the mourning cloak and the question mark butterflies. Oh, now we're going to go to the ashes and talk about ashes. A wonderful tree, very, very important in our food web. It has a compound leaf as opposed to a simple leaf, but I'm not really getting into IDs tonight, so I'll get off of that. The one thing I will talk about, though, is a dioecious tree. Does everybody know what dioecious means? Somebody tell the visitors what dioecious means. Boy trees and girl trees. That species has genders, okay? So your fruit, your seeds are going to be on females only. Both trees flower, both genders flower. One of them puts out pollen, the other one takes the pollen and creates the babies. Okay, that's how it works. And that's how it works with your ashes. 86 species of caterpillar producing insects in the middle of the country are supported by ashes, ash trees. And by far the most prevalent ash that we have in our area is the green ash. It's a bottomland lover. It's prevalent in all of our bottomlands in the area and will grow up the lower slopes also. It can get 80 to 100 feet tall. They support a tremendous number of wildlife in our area. The deer eat the leaves and the twigs. The birds and small mammals will eat those seeds that come out in the spring. There's actually come out in the summer. They're seeding right now. They're full of seed right now. They're the larval host for the tiger swallowtail, one of my favorite butterflies. The orange sulfur, the cloudless sulfur, and the mourning cloak butterfly again. A cousin of it is the Texas ash. And I'm not going to talk about white ash, which is a very important ash tree, but they grow a little to the east of us. Their range begins to the east of the Metroplex area. But the Texas ash is very, very similar to the white ash. As a matter of fact, it used to be considered a subspecies of white ash, but then it was given its own species name. Very high quality wood, supported once again by a lot of wildlife. Once again, a dioecious tree, really the same song. And it's the larval host for the eastern tiger swallowtail also. So now for the depressing part that I have to share about ashes. We have a terrible thing happening to our ash trees in the area now. It's been going on in the country in North America since the year 2000. It's called the emerald ash borer. It's a little bark beetle, very small, about the length of a dime or so, very small, bright green. First showed up in some packing crates, came over from Asia around 2000 in Michigan. Within 5 years, 30 million ash trees were dead in Michigan alone. It's been working its way down south. It's in 38 states now. Hundreds of millions, they're not sure how many, hundreds of millions of ash trees have died. If the emerald ash borer infects the tree, 95% mortality. It's pretty much a goner. And we're going to talk about what they do. It's a typical bark beetle approach. What happens with them? It's an invasive beetle. And the reason why it's been so devastating, it's not devastating like that in Asia. It has controls in Asia. The trees have developed resistance over millions of years to the problem, to the beetle. And the beetle has population controls in place. It came here, it has no population control. So it overpopulates and just does what its instincts tells it to do. And this is what it tells it to do. A female beetle will lay teeny tiny little eggs on the bark of an ash tree, any of the genus Fraxums, okay? You can't even see the eggs, they're so small. Those eggs hatch. The larvae will drill their way into the bark, into that cambium layer that I mentioned earlier, that area the tree feeds itself with its water and its nutrients and its sugars, and it will spend a year or two going round and round and round and round and feeding on the cambium cells. In the process of doing that over 2 years, it completely separates the cambium layer. It chokes the tree to death. And so the tree will begin to sucker at the bottom, trying to save itself. The top will die. Eventually, the whole tree dies. And in May, around the May period, they mature, they become beetles, and they pop out of the tree, leaving a very characteristic D hole, which I think they've kind of got a bit of an illustration here. Straight on one side, semicircle on the other, when they exit. And then the females are looking, they mate, the females are looking for another tree to put eggs on. And that's how it works. They're here. They're in Collin County. They're in Denton County. They're all over. I'm finding dead ash trees everywhere now. And they've just announced 5 additional counties that they found them in with the traps they use. They're now in 31 counties in Texas and it's still going up. So it's very depressing. We're losing a lot of our ashes, which supports so much of our ecosystem, because that green ash trees in our bottomlands, like at the herd and other areas, maybe 15% of our mix. And we're going to probably lose most of the bigger ones, at least for sure. So that is depressing as heck. So I'm going to try to lift your spirits with some stuff that Brian gave me. I don't know. I got to give it. Who's got the hand mic? Who's got? Oh, you got it. Oh, you ready? You're ready, aren't you? Okay. So we got some. I'll do it in a minute. I'm still depressing them. Oh. That is what the tracks look like. That's what the tracks look like. Okay, that's a dead tree with the bark taken off. That's a D exit hole there, and they're S curves, and that's what they do. They just rip that through the cambium layer till the tree finally choked to death. So are you depressed now? Okay, we're gonna make a feeble effort to make you feel better. Okay, it's dad joke time, Brian.
Okay, good.
Go for it.
Kind of loosen up. Okay. Why are trees so good at networking? Because they're always.
Get it? Good job. Good job. Good job. I didn't want to do these. Brian insisted, so I threw them in. So. I don't know. So, okay, now we'll go through some of the other canopy trees, the big trees that we find in the North Texas area. Black walnut, beautiful tree, the woodworker's most favorite wood. The Juglans genus supports 89 caterpillar type insects. Beautiful tree, has that large nut, which is hard to get into, but squirrels love them. Nuts are an important food source for wildlife, mainly squirrels. And it is the host for Luna moths, which we don't see that many of here, but we do run into them on occasion, and the regal moth, which is the hot dog moth. So if you want to find one of those guys, go your black walnut trees. That's where you want to look to see if you can find them. So it's a really great tree. Its range has actually been spreading in North America over the last 100 years or so. Black willow, much maligned tree, a trash tree. Kill them all. They're crap, right? Look at the number of caterpillar producing insects that tree supports. Also, special designation, 20 specialized bees rely on our willow genus. Very, very important tree for so many reasons. In our woods, do you want it in your yard? No. But you want it in your woods. You want it by your rivers. You want it by your ponds for so many reasons. The tree is dioecious, and your females are prolific seed producers. Every part of this tree is used by wildlife. It is a major part of the food web. Bark, twigs, and bugs are food for browsers such as deer, rabbits, and beaver. This is Mr. Beaver's favorite tree. They love black willows. Flowers attract native bees, bumblebees, and honeybees in the spring. And the tree is the larval host for the mourning cloak, the viceroy butterfly, the red-spotted purple, and the tiger swallowtail butterfly. Very, very important tree for multiple reasons in our woods. This is the black willow. Next up is the box elder maple, which isn't thought of much, but your maple genus is very, very important to the middle prairie states. As you can see, with 145 supported by it. This is the only compound leaf maple there is. It has actually not a simple leaf, but a compound leaf. But it is a maple. It is dioecious. That particular tree you see the young man leaning his arm on resides here at the herd, and it's way out there, but it is by far the largest box elder maple I've ever seen. I've never seen a trunk anywhere near that size. And it's out in the boonies. And it just needs to stay out there and stay protected. This is a really valuable tree that grows in bottomlands, grows along creeks. It likes your moist areas. That's where you're going to find it. It's in floodplains and along creeks. Its flowers are a nectar source for bees, butterflies, and other insects. That fruit is eaten by several species of birds. It's a larval host for your mourning cloak again, and your cecropia moths, so one of your prettier moths in the area. This is the host for it, and that is the ash leaf maple or the box elder maple. One of my favorite trees ever anyway, the common persimmon. This has that wonderful sweet fruit. Who has eaten a good sweet persimmon fruit? Yes. Is it good? Persimmon pudding is good. You have to make some for us. Christmas party will be in December. So there you go. You got it. You just got drafted for it. Wonderful tree, grows and grows. It will grow in different areas, bottomlands, uplands. It'll grow and grows. If you find one, look around. You're going to find more. There grow sometimes of hundreds, thousands of these trees. And they'll grow in the woods when they grow together like that, like a telephone pole. They'll grow tall with a little narrow canopy. And they're dioecious. The females will put out that orange fruit that's so sweet. Now, who has eaten one that's not ripe? You'll never forget that experience. Don't let anybody trick you. They go sweet quick, like an overnight thing. Here's the key. They will turn orange before they're ripe. Here's what you got to know. If they're on the ground, they're ripe. If you don't have to tug it off, if it comes off in your hand when you touch it, it's ripe. If you got to tug it, give it to your friend. Have them test it first. So the fruit's high in vitamin C and it's highly prized by wildlife. Coyote candy, coyote crack, it's got all sorts of names. Wildlife loves this. It's so easy to identify coyote scat in fall because it's always got persimmon seeds in it, always. Possums, raccoons, skunks, deer birds, all the mammals love the fruit. The flowers do attract honeybees. And it is also the larval host for the Luna moth also. So bear that in mind if you're going Luna moth hunting. Eastern cottonwood, another pioneer type tree that likes moist areas, not quite as wet as a willow does, black willow does, but they like bottomlands. We have some beautiful big ones here at the herd over towards the wetland cells. 180, the populous genus in our area, the Plain States, 180 species are supported by the populous genus. And there's just a handful of cottonwood species actually grow through the Plain States. So this is a major player when it comes to wildlife support and ecosystem support in our area. Birds eat the seeds and they will put out a lot of seeds. It's a dioecious tree, and I mentioned in my notes here that a big female will put out 40 million seeds in a season. So that's a lot of seeds. So they do support a lot of our wildlife. Larval hosts for the mourning cloak, the viceroy, the red-spotted purple, and the tiger swallowtail. So it's another host. And this is actually, when I was doing this because I was getting so depressed about ashes, knowing that ashes are a major supporter of tiger swallowtails, we do have other species that are numerous that they will go to host on because I was concerned, about tiger swallowtail populations. They probably will decline, but they will continue to move on. My favorite climbing tree, the honey locust. Love this tree. Got these crazy thorns on thorns to keep those big bad megafauna off of it from climbing the tree, which no longer exists. There's a dioecious tree. The female will put out the long 18-inch seed pod that will be velvety to the touch. And when they get a salmon pink color, pop one open. And they've been pretty prolific with their seeds this year. Pop it open. That pulp in there is really sweet and can be made into all sorts of things. Native Americans use this as a major food source in our area. And animals love them too. So they will be all over those seed pods pretty quick. It's an important food source. Oop, wrong button. There we go. The pulp is eaten by deer, birds, small mammals. Seeds are eaten by birds. The flowers are a nectar source for your silver-spotted skipper and bees, and it's the larval host for the silver-spotted skipper, the bicolored honey locust moth, and the bisected honey locust moth. So you got some pretty neat big moths that also are supported by this tree. Now I put in the Osage orange, okay? Only because I like it really doesn't support anything, but I like this tree, okay? Because you've heard me say this, if you've been in the trees class, that its megafauna are gone, it lost its customers, your squirrels will tear them apart and they will eat the seeds, but that's about it. So when you see a female drop all its horse apples, they just rot. They just lay there and rot, right? So actually, the Osage orange, which is an amazing tree, doesn't really support a ton of wildlife, okay? However, the theory is that megafauna used to eat this, and this was very important to your giant sloths and your mastodons and your mammoths back in the day, till about 14,000 years ago. And you know where science is going. Science is going to get there, and we may have mastodons back and giant sloths. And my dream is we will see that, Dave. We will INAT that. We're going to put that in iNaturalists. All right. The great tree, pecan. Korea is a massively important genus. Pecan is a huge member of that, a really important member of it. With 153 species supported in the Midwest area, high protein fruit. I don't have to say much about pecans. You know, everybody loves them. They're great. We eat them. You got to chase the squirrels off your pecans. Any kind of wildlife will eat them. They're so valuable. And a big pecan tree can put out 150 pounds a year. It's a bottomland dweller. That's why you tend to see pecan groves on flat areas near creeks. They like floodplains. They kind of like it that way. So that's where you'll usually find your pecan groves. It's been cultivated for thousands of years. The nut, as I mentioned, is rich in protein, oil, and minerals, prized by birds and small mammals. It's a larval host for the gray hairstreak, the Luna moth, the regal moth, and the sad underwing moth. Do you see the sad underwing moth? Can you see them? Two of them. Yeah. This is on a pecan at Frisco Commons, on the big one. And they are on these trees now. This actually is a host for that tree. And right now they're on the trees, but you can't see them because of the camouflage. So what you do, you go up to a big pecan tree and you whack it. You tap it with your hand to make them flutter. Then you can see them and see where they land and you go to them. That's the only way you'll ever see them. You cannot see them until you make them move. So anyway, those are really cool. I love those. They're here on bur oaks too. Don't we run into them? I don't know if it's a sad underwing, but it's an underwing. Yeah, you find them on bur oaks too. Anyway, I thought those cool pictures. Those guys were neat. All right, so that's a pecan. Red mulberry. Mulberries aren't necessarily a canopy tree, but sometimes they'll get 50 feet tall. But they can get pretty big. But usually you see them in as an understory tree. They love bottomlands. They love low slopes. They're usually dioecious, not always, but they're usually dioecious. And the females will create these blackberry type berries that are a little longer than blackberries. They're really tasty if you've never had them, and they're very good for you. And when you got to beat the birds and the squirrels to them when they're ready to go. And they're really, really, really good. The fruit's rich in vitamins, all sorts of vitamins, blah, blah, blah. You can see that. They're great fruit. And it's a larval host for the morning cloak butterfly too. Sugar hackberry, bit of a maligned tree. And frankly, right now, if you go look at your sugar hackberries, they look like crap. Have you noticed that? Have you looked at the leaves? They are chewed on, beat on, galled on. They got all sorts of things going. That's because they're being used by our ecosystem. The wildlife is using this tree heavily, relies heavily on this tree. So they don't look good. They get wore out, but they're really, really valuable. And they're valuable not just as a host, but as a food source. Their berries are maturing right now. They're beginning to turn red. They will persist through the fall into the winter time. They're a very important winter food source for our animals that are residing here that don't have the choices they do during the spring and the summer. This is a very important food source. You may not know it, but these are human edible fruits too, if you've never eaten them. Lisa, hey Lisa, pay attention. Even though you have heard this unfortunately 20 times already, but tell us how long we can live on these little berries? 3 months. Lisa says we can live 3 months on hackberry berries. She wants to try it on me, but I don't know if I want to go for that experiment or not. She's always wanted to do weird tests like that. But anyway, the hackberry is a great tree that is a very important fall and winter browse. They're used by deer for browse. The berries I told you about them. They're the larval host, and they're eclosing now. They're maturing now for the hackberry emperor and the tawny emperor. It's the host tree for them, and they'll usually have a lot of them on them, and they have a lot of them on them right now. These are the cutest little butterflies, and they love salt. So if you're out doing the kind of work we do and we get sweaty, next thing you know, you got an armful of hackberry emperor butterflies because they got their little proboscis and they're just tickling you and just taking your little sweat, your salt off of you. They're really cute. They'll hang on to you for hours. All right, we have one conifer in the area to talk about, and that's the eastern red cedar. It's a pioneer species. We're always cutting them out of our prairie restoration areas, but they have their place ecologically in our area. It is not a cedar. It is a juniper, in case you got misled by the name. It is also dioecious. Being a conifer, it doesn't have berries. It has cones. The male has a little amber cones you can see here that makes the male tree look kind of dusty in the spring. And then the female will have these completely enclosed little blueberry looking cones that will persist through the winter and be an important food source. The fruit is consumed by birds and small mammals, and because they're evergreen and they're bushy, especially in the open, they do provide good cover during the wintertime for wildlife and during the summertime. And is the larval host for this butterfly, which I have yet to find. I have yet to see a juniper hair streak. Has anybody ever seen a juniper hair streak? Gene, in your backyard, right? Where you see everything? Okay. Okay. We were making a joke about Jean keeps finding these rare insects in her backyard when she's mothing. So anyway, I've yet to see it, but it is the host for it. But that is your eastern red cedar. Smaller understory trees, we'll go through these relatively quickly here. Common button bush likes to be near water. They are flowering right now. They'll flower all summer. And man, native bees and butterflies are all over this. It's more of a bush, woody bush. And they will grow in a yard if you plant them. But you generally find them in a natural state around water. Really, really pretty and really valuable as a pollinator for pollinators. Deer do eat the leaves and the twigs. As I mentioned, it's a nectar source for your pollinators. Birds will eat the seeds and other water birds. And is the larval host, I've never seen this one either, for a Titan sphinx moth. Gene, have you seen this one in your backyard? Okay. Okay, just checking. Hawthorns, we'll talk about these as a general genus, not as a species. There are 90 species that handles the Crataegus genus in the area. We have 30 species or so in Texas. They crossbreed. So once again, you got a lot of mutts out there. So I don't really get into the species so much with your hawthorns, but they're more of an upland tree. You see them more in upland areas. Even in our area, you'll see them kind of upslope. They have beautiful flowers in the spring the bees love. They have great fruit after they germinate for your other species. So the birds and small mammals eat the fruit and seeds. Butcher birds, I like to mention this, shrikes, they like hawthorns because hawthorns will have these occasional long thorns on them. And shrikes will catch a mouse or their prey and take them to that thorn and stick them on it and impale them. Shrike the impaler. Now, do you know why they do that? They're a predator like hawks and eagles, but they're not big and they can't hold the food that's alive and be able to tear it apart. So they have to stick it on something and then they can eat it. That's what I read. So it's like a mouse kebab and then they eat it. So let's see, it's a larval host for several species of hair-streaked butterflies. So that's your hawthorns. Hercules Club, one of my favorite trees to talk about. I won't start, but the females, it's a dioecious tree. The females have these seeds which are in this little, I don't know, little capsule. They're in a little capsule. They're popping right now. These little black bean seeds are popping out right now, and they don't last long once they do that. They're shiny little BB looking things, and they're in the middle of doing that right now. When these flower, there are bees all over them. When they fruit, there are birds all over this tree. Hercules Club is really an important tree. They like to grow, their fence line edges generally is where I find them most of the time. They're not a bottomland. They don't like bottomlands so much. It's a nectar source of bees and butterflies. Larval host, this is important, it is the key larval host for the giant swallowtail butterfly, the key host for it. So if you want giant swallowtails, you need Hercules Clubs in the area. Mexican plum is one of the plums, and Prunus is an extremely important genus. It's one of the fruit trees, and you've got a lot of insects that utilize these trees as a host. The Mexican plum is a pretty common plum in our area, but we have others that are frankly just as important, but I'll mention the Mexican plum, which flowers. One of its important aspects is it flowers, it's the first tree to flower. It flowers clearly before it leaves. It's the first one up, and so your early rising bees and butterflies early in the season, they go to find those because that's what they've got that they can feed off of from a nectar standpoint. Very important tree. Boop. There we go. The fruit is prized by wildlife, eaten by deer. It is human edible, needs a lot of sugar, but you can make things out of it. It's a nectar source for butterflies, native bees, larval host for the tiger swallowtail, so it's another larval host for that, and Cecropia moss. Possuma holly is a deciduous holly. It loses its leaves in the winter. It's dioecious. Your females will leave those beautiful red berries, which persist and are an important food source over the winter. Those berries will stay around for a long time. It seems like the critters like to let them sit out there in the cold and the sun and get a little squishy before they go after them. Because it's usually late winter, very early spring when they start to get wiped out all of a sudden. But they'll sit there for a while, which makes for a very pretty tree because you've got these bare limbs with these red berries all over them. Pretty small, will grow in upland areas or lower slopes. Deer will eat the young twigs. The fruit attracts small mammals and birds like we discussed late in the season. And then it's a food source for possums. So Ren, if you're on, this is what you want to plant on your property. Ren is our local possum keeper. Takes care of a lot of possums at her house. Possum rescue. Okay, rough leaf dogwood. This is an edge tree, more of a bush. A lot of them here at the herd along the edges. It flowers with these little five petal flowers that do them in bouquets or panicles is the botanical term for it. Bees will love them. Then they will turn into these off-white berries as they get fertilized. And there's about, I think I've got it in my writing here, about 40 species of birds will utilize these during fall migration. So it's a bird party sometimes in these thickets you find of dogwood when they have their berries on them. There'll be all sorts of birds in those areas. And they do form dense thickets also. Does the flower smell good? They have a scent to them. They're okay. They're not nasty. Yeah, I think they have a scent to them, if I recall. Not strong. It's a good. Okay, I got one more dad joke I think coming up. Are you ready? Are you ready? And then we're almost done. Oh yeah, there's the birds. Okay, here we go. All right. Come on, Brian, you can do it. Yeah, give him encourage him.
Okay. Why do dogwood trees make good pets? I can't do this. Oh, okay. Sorry. Because they have a great.
Good job. Couldn't you have picked some better dad jokes than? All right. Let's see. We're almost there. We got a couple more to look at here. I think we have two more trees. Rusty blackhaw burnum you find on limestone slopes is usually where I find them. Small tree, beautiful tree. There's one at the front of the Herd Museum right by the door. This has the little five-petaled flowers. Flowers about the same time as the dogwood. I think maybe a little bit later. A little bit earlier. Thank you, Dave. And the bees will be all over it. And then you have these human edible fruits that will turn this dark purple, black, blue color that are pretty good. They taste kind of like a raisin. And makes for a valuable small tree and should be used in landscaping more often. And so there's about 60 species of birds will eat the fruit on this. And then we've got, I think this is our last tree, and this is a general talk about sumacs. There are 3 species generally that I find in the area. What we have here is smooth sumac is what grows in the Collin County area. You go west, you'll run into flame leaf sumac and shining sumac, but they all behave pretty much the same way. They grow bushy, they grow edgy in groves and thickets. They will put out a panicle, a bouquet of flowers that doesn't look like much. It's kind of a white greenish thing, isn't much. But the seeds are this bright red and they're human edible and they taste like sweet tarts. They are used, there's a lot of herbalists that use this for a lot of different things and create a lot of recipes out of them. And whenever I walk folks in the Middle East on a trail walk and go through sumacs, their eyes always brighten because apparently it's a very important condiment in Middle Eastern cuisine. And so that's a sumac. I know they snuck back later to get some off because they're like, oh, I didn't know you had these. And yes, we do. We have them here. And they're quite good. So right now they taste pretty good. So they're kind of sour, but you can try them now. This tree gets beautiful red in the fall too. So pretty good. If you've got room for something like this, it's such a pretty landscaping element. And they get bright red. I've already pretty much said all that. And then it's a larval host for many of your hair streak butterflies. That's the trees. We're done. Put a fork in it. Right. These are resources I've used, so you can get a picture of that if you want to use a lot of the things that I use. The 2 great tree books are The Field Guide to Texas Trees by Benny Simpson, The Illustrated Book of Trees by William Carey Grimm. I live with those 2 books. The Nature of Oaks by Doug Tallamy is a really good read. And then I use Texas A&M Forest Service, and you see where I put the National Wildlife Federation there. I am done. If you have any questions, I am available. Does anybody have any questions? Gene? Oh, yeah, yeah. Brian, Mike. Yeah, just take care of it. Just handle it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Rick?
Yeah.
Who in the Metroplex has reported the most number of the Hercules Club?
Stand up. I know you're back on. For the folks online, I just made Gene Higgins stand up. The story there is, I didn't know it. I was #1 in the nation in Hercules Club. What is going on out there? The meeting is not over. Anyway, I was #1. A friend of mine, Jerry Hamby from the Elm Fork chapter, he was #2, and he was going after me, and then he passed me. We're all going neck and neck, and I knew what was going to happen, just like a race like in the Olympics. We're looking at each other, getting tired, and then there's #3, just doing her thing, and wiped us both out. And she's now #1 in the nation in Hercules Club observations. Thank you, Gene. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Mr. Dan.
You mentioned oak wilt, and painting is one of the recommendations. Is there a type of paint? I know some paints are not recommended for wounds. Is there a paint that's recommended?
There's specific tree trimming paint. The question was what, we were on the mic, so you heard. There is tree trimming paint. It's kind of gooey, it's thick, and I think it gets in there a little bit better than like just latex or whatever. I would just recommend using tree trimming paint, and because I really wouldn't know oil-based versus latex versus whatever. I don't know, Grayson, do you have an idea? Okay, so they do make tree trimming paint. Unfortunately, with tree trimming paint, it gets so tarry, it's like you better use it up because you're probably going to have to chunk the can because it gets kind of messy later. So it doesn't keep very well. I'll put it that way. Any other questions? Back here, Rena. Yeah. Hang on. Brian's a little slow.
Thank you. I noticed a couple of days ago, it looked like either you or Sam Kieschnick had started a new iNaturalist project to count all the trees in the entire DFW area. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
That wasn't me.
It wasn't you? Okay.
Wasn't me. Sam doesn't sleep. He has time. He's got time. He'll take care of that. So they are doing a very detailed urban forestry tree count in Denton, I'm aware of, because of our friends at Elm Fork, because they've told me quite a bit about it. Every park, every median is giving every tree counted and sized and cataloged one at a time. Yeah, and they're going to be doing it for 5 years. It's going to take them 5 years to get it done. That's the only one I'm aware of that's that detailed. But maybe Dallas is going to crank up something like that. It might be that they're doing that. What else?
So I've got a question. There's a bur oak behind our house in a wooded area that I was told was 150 years old. Is that pretty normal for a bur oak to get 100 to 200?
It sure is, Al. It is. They can live 300 years. The big one at Hoodow is pushing 300.
Wow.
It's in that vicinity. They can, yes, in the right conditions, they can easily live 150 years. Oaks in general are pretty long lived. They will usually live anywhere 200, 250, 300 in good conditions. I'm not talking urban conditions necessarily. I'm talking about in the woods. The only oak that I know of that doesn't live that way is the water oak, which is one of my favorite oaks in East Texas, which has beautiful form. And there's a lot of front yards, like in Tyler and East Texas towns, 60, 70 years. And those folks are not going to realize that something's going to hit them. And they're going to think, why is it dying already? But they're very short-lived, yeah.
What it's on riparian as opposed to?
Okay, go ahead and ask it again, Rena.
Why did you focus on riparian trees as opposed to hilltop trees or whatever?
Good question, because we are in the Blackland Prairie, and our ecoregion consists of upland, our natural state, in its natural state was tallgrass prairie. But what we would have in a web interspersed along the creeks and rivers were woodlands. And those are riverine woodlands or riparian woodlands, because that's where we live. We live in an area that from a natural standpoint is tallgrass prairie, uplands with riparian woodlands in a web all through, if you're looking down at it, all along your creeks and rivers. But I did cheat because I put a couple of upland trees in there. You know, the cross timbers trees are upland trees because they just grow everywhere there. But I needed good alliteration. I needed a good name, so I came up with that. So, yeah. Anything else? Any other questions?
Okay, everybody. Oh,
One more, Ernie.
Yeah, a quick question, Rick. You mentioned that the post oak and one other oak are in East Texas and then across timbers, but they skip over the Blackland Prairie. Is that because of soil type?
Soil, it's clay. Yeah, because they germinate in sandy soil. That is exactly right. Range of a tree is largely dictated by the seed's ability to germinate. Okay, there are trees you can plant out of its range, it'll do fine. I'll use bald cypress as an example. They don't grow here naturally. Do you see them in the woods? No, but you see them all over the place and they grow great because they're planted, but their seeds don't germinate in clay. Well, you've got the same thing with your blackjack oak and your post oak. They don't germinate in the clay. But we actually do have post oaks technically in the Blackland Prairie. You know where? The Great Trinity Forest, where you've got massive amounts of alluvial sand. And so they germinated there, and so you'll find them down in there. So it's seed germination is what dictated that and what they skipped over. Yeah. Yeah. What else?
Hey, why is there so many crepe myrtles in
Good question. Good question. Well, great. We do a lot of non-native planting. We have a lot of non-native plants and trees that we bring over. Why do we do that? Well, there's multiple reasons. It reminds people of home. They came from Europe, they came from Asia, that's what they had. And so they would bring them over. That's how a lot of our introduced plants came here. Also because they're not part of our ecoregion, so they didn't evolve here. So our critters can't use them as a food source or as a host. So they never look that tarnished. So Callaways will advertise their plants as bugs don't bother them, which isn't great ecologically, but the insects can't use them a lot extent. Crepe myrtles are pretty. They do get the aphid thing. You know, they get that. They're pretty. They're not invasive, but they're benign. They're not really any help either when you could put something out native to be that small accent tree that would do so much more for your ecoregion, you know, for your ecology versus a crepe myrtle. But people like them because they put the flowers out, and McKinney is a crepe myrtle city, you know. And there's a lot of other cities that are like that. But a lot of people like them. And they're fairly hardy, you know, they're relatively hardy. But they're not native, so we don't like them as master naturalists. But they're not evil. They're not invasive, at least. They're not invasive, so. Anybody else?
okay, everybody. I need your help with this last one. Because it's time to make like a tree and
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Enjoyed it. It was fun.